Consumerism today is a relatively new concept considering the different types of habits we have had over the centuries as human beings. To understand consumerism, especially in modern times, we must first understand the definition of consumerism: the belief that it is beneficial and good for people to spend money on goods, services, and spending that leans towards excess. Consumerism is a popular concept that prevails in many of the Western cultures like the United States and several European countries. Consumerism is a system born out of one of capitalism. Capitalism, according to Dalton Conley, is a form of economy which privately owned property and goods are the norm. Distribution, production, and prices of goods are a product of competition in an independent marketplace. The time frames for observation of capitalism and consumerism are different. Capitalism has existed since roughly the 15th century, while consumerism is much more recent. Consumerism as a term was first coined in 1944, thus making it an incredibly recent style of composition. The excess which we live here in America is testament to the sociological concept of consumerism. As a society, we must recognize and do more to realize the dangers of consumerism with regards to excess and waste. We must prevent this country and the world from consuming beyond the metaphorical tipping point. Two prominent and opposing founding fathers of sociology can view capitalism in two different lights. The perhaps biggest proponent of capitalism was the sociologist Adam Smith. Smith believed that a capitalist society was advantageous because of the way the world was evolving towards a consumer society rather than a feudal society. He believed that working in production could possibly lead to entrepreneurship, creating more innovation, money, and lead to a continuation of a positive effect on society. This system focused on money was key since it created better opportunities than did a barter system, theoretically at least. Situations, as we know in modern times, are not always so cut and dry. The ulterior sociologist in opposition to Smith was the famous Karl Marx. Marx was in the mind that capitalism was inherently flawed and was a system going to fail. Marx did not view the division of labor as a positive aspect of society. He believed that this created multiple forms of alienation. He believed in alienation of the product, the process, other people, and oneself. Alienation of the product is when the workers do not know the product they are producing other than their particular step in line, such as a worker on an automobile production line. Alienation of the process is when a worker does not have the accountability that one works for themselves has, for example, meeting a quota but creating one's own schedule versus showing up at work at a specific time regardless of health or other factors. Alienation of others is described in terms of questionable productivity. If one does not work to standards deemed acceptable by others in capitalism, they are subject to social sanctions due to the possible loss of productivity. Alienation of self to Marx is a lack of creativity and inspiration. He believed that working on a production line stymied the creative process. For example, a sculptor has an abstract image in their mind of what they want to create and work to accomplish, that while a factory worker goes in, has a pre-established task and must be performed to exact specifications and no room for creative adjustments. While both sociologists have valid points, too often the conflict theory sense is in the forefront of modern times. The level of excess consumerism we are encouraged to participate in modern times is disturbing. It creates a hamster wheel society in which people too often are trying to go above and beyond another person or milestone in their lives. Celebrities, for example, are ones who all too often live in extreme excess to the point it is disturbing to watch. A quick browse of subpar television channels like MTV displays ample evidence of excessive consumerism with various quote-unquote reality shows like The Housewives, among others, that make it a point to boast about one's money and what they needlessly buy and consume. Attempting to apply cultural relativism to such a lavish lifestyle is difficult. Having multiple mansions and high-end vehicles in service seems more oppressive than luxurious. Richard Robbins, a professor of anthropology in New York, is a good resource on the effects and realities of consumerism in the United States. Reaffirms that in order for the current capitalist state that we live in to continue to succeed, there needs to maintain an element of excessive consumption of goods and services because that's the basis of a capitalist society, consumption. The article by Shah parallels the conflict theory in that the conglomerates of the world depend on people to not only work for them, but to continue to feel the need to buy products from them. Take Super Bowl commercials, for example. It costs millions of dollars from the billion-dollar multinational corporations like McDonald's and Coca-Cola to put a strategic commercial to advertise to consumers their product. It is a testimony to our system that it costs millions for a simple advertisement during a sponsored sporting event. They spend countless dollars to keep us in our buying habits.